Hi, everybody. We're just going to give everybody a couple minutes to join us. Everybody's filtering in. Thank you. We'll just start in a minute. Welcome to those just joining. We're just going to wait a couple more seconds and then we're going to get started. Okay, folks, so we're going to get started. So please allow me to just say hello and welcome. I'm Elena Fotinatos, the Deputy Director of the King Baudouin Foundation, United States. Thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion on alumni engagement and the business of belonging with our wonderful speaker, Janet Rossbach, who I'll be introducing more formally shortly. First, please allow me to mention my thanks for our co-sponsors for this event, the Charities Institute of Ireland, Fundraising Verband Austria, Scuola di Fundraising di Roma, and the Utrecht Network. There are some familiar names in the attendee list, but for those who aren't familiar with KBF US, please allow me a brief word. The King Baudouin Foundation United States facilitates thoughtful, effective giving to Europe and Africa. We enable US donors to support their favorite causes overseas. We also provide European and African nonprofits with cost-effective solutions to raise funds in the US through a tool we call an American Friends Fund. We have over 500 American Friends Funds, including with institutions like the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands, the Bavarian State Opera in Germany, and the National Library of France, among others. These funds save nonprofits the trouble and expense of setting up their own 501c3 public charity. KBF US handles all back office administration, including tax receipts and donor support. So if you have donors in the US, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to assist. And by the way, if you have donors in Canada, Europe, Asia, feel free to reach out as well. We have partners that can help with those donors in those countries and regions. Now, turning to the webinar today, we at KBF US understand that universities in Europe face similar challenges when it comes to fundraising and wanted to create some content specifically focused around these topics. We hope to bring more webinars next year specifically for this audience, but I encourage you to look at our website, kbfus.org, under programs, where you will see an archive of past webinars that might be helpful to you. Some housekeeping before we get started. You're all in listen-only mode. The session is being recorded, and if you have any questions, which I hope you do, you should use the Q&A feature to submit them. The chat has been, shouldn't be functioning actually, so make sure you put those in the Q&A feature throughout the presentation. It's completely fine. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Janet Rossbach, who has 20 plus years in the belonging business, leading the Alumni Relations offices for 4 New York academic institutions, including the Columbia Business School and Baruch College, which is part of CUNY. She has built national, international, professional, corporate, and cultural affinity networks, online and in person, that connect alumni with one another and encourage lifelong support of their alma mater. She's a trustee with the Awesome Newburgh Foundation, which distributes $1,000 monthly grants to awesome community projects in the city of Newburgh, New York. She also sits on the Girls Inc. NYC Project Reach Advisory Committee, tracking Girls Inc. graduates' college success, and is an active mentor with the New York Community Trust Leadership Fellows Program. She advises nonprofits through the Gerson Lerman Group and has sat on the boards of Troika Ranch, a contemporary dance troupe, and the Showcase Foundation, a private foundation. She also served as Director, Foundation and Government Relations at the Manhattan Theater Club, where she stewarded over 100 grant proposals a year. Janet holds a certificate in Applied Positive Psychology from the Flourishing Center, a certificate in career coaching from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, an MS in Nonprofit Management from the Milano School for Policy Management and the Environment at the New School University, and a BA in Art History cum laude from Georgetown University. Janet, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Let me share screen and pull up my presentation. All right, I hope everyone can see. All right, so welcome everyone. I'm delighted to be here and to speak with you about alumni relations and the business of belonging. A little bit about me. I'm a native New Yorker, but I've traveled across all 6 continents, especially in Europe, and hosted alumni events across the world. You've heard a little bit about my alumni relations expertise. As well as some of my fundraising experience especially in the art world. I did teach for a couple years fundraising in the arts, and my philanthropy and some consulting experience with 2 universities in about alumni relations. So in brief, with 22 years in higher education, it was only after completing a certificate in positive psychology that I realized that all my work in alumni relations, volunteer engagement, and fundraising was really about being in the belonging business. While I'd hosted over 3,000 events, from rooftop receptions to reunions and award dinners, and while people might enjoy getting a fun gift, the mug on the right was produced as part of our Baruch College 50th anniversary celebration. If we give out delicious cocktails and yummy food, it really is the opportunity to experience that incredible sense of belonging that I am providing our alumni. And when you look at these pictures, you just feel good. You just see the smiling faces and you feel the energy of people really connecting. So what is belonging? It's actually more fascinating than you would ever think. Some of you may be familiar with Brené Brown, who is a research professor, author, and basically a kick-ass woman. She writes actively on courage and vulnerability and shame. And she has one of the most popular TED Talks on vulnerability. Her definition of belonging is that it's a subjective state that is affected by mood, health, and self-perception. It has nothing to do with how many people you know and places you belong. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that it's that sense of belonging is a personal feeling as more so than some external definition. Belonging is the innate desire to be part of something larger than us. It's something that we all yearn for. And in fact, talking about that feeling, it's a feeling of deep relatedness and acceptance, a feeling of I would rather be here than anywhere else. I can exhale here and be fully myself with no judgment or insecurity. That's a quote from Radha Agrawal, who's the founder of Daybreaker. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Daybreaker, but Daybreaker is a substance-free morning dance party that has taken over the world and is an extraordinary experience for people to get together at 6 o'clock in the morning, dance really hard, and then go to work in the morning. And for those folks who love to do that, they feel a great sense of belonging. And she wrote this book called Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. And I do recommend it. Let's see. Okay, so I'm sure many of you know about Abraham Maslow and the theory of human motivation and his hierarchy of needs. And you'll notice many folks know that you need security and safety, and then people think the next one is love, but it's also belonging. It is also that sense of friendship and connection that is really important. It is those human relationships and being part of a group. So Maslow goes on to talk, and I won't go into a great detail about this, but he says that belonging is a deficiency need. It's something that if you do not have it, you end up experiencing, it ends up showing up as loneliness. And loneliness is a disconnect, is the gap between how much connection we want and how much connection we have. And loneliness is a perceived sense of pain. And it's something that biologically can be quite impactful. Loneliness is the opposite of belonging. So when you think about how important belonging is, it's good for your body, mind, and spirit. Two professors published a book in an article in 1995, The Need to Belong, and they came up with, they reiterated the fact that belonging is indeed a fundamental need. And they came up with a triad of belonging, the three ingredients that are required in order to belong. And this is something that we talk about in alumni relations, and in turn can influence fundraising. Number one, interaction. Belonging requires regular social exchange, regular opportunities for people to get together. That's very much the business of alumni relations, in which you provide webinars and workshops and receptions and teas and outings and so forth, so that people can connect. Concern is defined as an interaction that includes an expression of awareness about your needs, a deeper connection that's more than just a social exchange. So concern is that you are interested in the people who you are interacting with in your group, and you are glad to see them, and you have that regular sense of connection. But the one that really makes the difference is caring. It's not just a deep understanding of a person's situation, but a willingness to help as needed. This is also a definition of friendship that, some of us often say that alumni relations is the friend-raising business as opposed to the fundraising business. And that it really is about caring about the people who are in the community and wanting to get together and check in with each other. I'm sure you have been in an environment at some point, whether academically, professionally, socially, where you're just so delighted to see certain people, and you have that sort of lean in conversation where you just want to check in with them. That is what belonging is about. Connection is what builds belonging. Connection is the energy that exists between two people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. And connection comes from the French for heart, cœur. So it really is about being heart-centric. Now, I understand this may sound all very soft, but the softness of the impact of belonging can lead to hard results. There's a wonderful academic named Barbara Fredrickson that talks about how connection is the same as love. And the clearest difference between the love you feel with intimates and the love you feel with anyone with whom you share a connection is purely sheer frequency. And she talks about these micro moments of positivity resonance. And this was revolutionary to me when I was reading about this, that when you are connecting with someone and you're vibing, you're really on the same wavelength, your brain reads that as love. Even if you may not be in love with someone, your brain reads it, and the dopamine that runs through your system is the same. And so as a single woman for many years, I found this very interesting because I felt a sense of love with my friends and did not feel, as it were, at a loss because I didn't have a partner. And that's something that I think is having that synchronicity between you and another person impacts your biochemistry. It's just a remarkable bit of research that she has shared. And you can see this positivity resonance in people because the two of you start mirroring each other and your postures and your gestures, and you might even finish each other's sentences. You can feel united and connected. Energy, once again, is about connection and is the invisible universal language of all life. And once again, Radha says, good people who want to hang out, work, travel, and do business with people who exclamation points, who have that energy, that prompts even greater sense of belonging. Some additional research by Yuri Hassan from Princeton has noticed that when people are listening to one another, their brains actually start mirroring each other. And so the brain activity between the speaker and the listener is truly a meeting of the minds. Barbara Fredrickson goes on saying that this positivity resonance and meeting of the minds, this synchronicity of two people's brains, suggests that in good communication, two individuals come to feel a single shared emotion, as well as one that is distributed across both brains. So this comes across as a biological manifestation of oneness. I realize this is a lot of psychology talk, but think about this impact when you're talking to donors, when you're talking to alumni, and trying to engage them to connect with one another, with your organization, and with supporting the work that you do. Just imagine what that manifestation of oneness could be in a group, right? So how do you do this now that you know all about the energy and the dopamine and the incredible sense of feeling that you can create among your alumni and your donors? How do you do that? Well, I have a few questions for you. If you have a pad and paper, if you want to jot down and make a list of some questions for you to reflect on following this conversation. How does your college or university currently create a sense of belonging? There's probably a lot of work to create a sense of belonging among students. What about faculty? What about alumni? How transactional is your university experience? And where are you able to create that sense of belonging as a core belief and possibly even operational model for your institution? It also, how does your organization create a sense of belonging for your staff? Everyone is an ambassador for the organization, right? So how can you cultivate this priority of belonging among your entire community? Because ultimately it will impact fundraising. It's pretty explanatory right here what this picture and this slide is all about. It's about showing up. It's about really being present. It's not about just where your body is from 9 to 5 or 7 to 9, whatever it might be. It's about being prompted to volunteer. It's about feeling engaged at a level that you want to add value to the organization. I love this quote. It means wagging your tail. And how many people do you know when they show up at work, when they show up at your institution to go to school, when they show up to teach, are wagging their tail? It may be a very tall order, but I think it's a wonderful, wonderful goal. It takes a lot of time, but creating that sense of community and connection within your organization can reward you in the long term. Robert Putnam, the author of Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of the American Community, which was published 20 years ago. And he's since written another book that just came out this year. But in 2020, he made a sincere distinction in organizations. We talked about the feeling before, but here he talked about how a community is a group of individuals who share mutual concern for one another's welfare, right? That's care and concern. It's distinct from a group whose members may share ideas, interests, proximity, or any other number of things but lack concern for each other. So there are organizations in the United States, and I'm sure across Europe and Asia and Africa and South America, where there are membership programs where people are interested in the art at the Museum of Modern Art, or they're professionally inclined to join the American Medical Association, or they believe in the cause of Greenpeace. But their members may not know each other and may not sense that strong social connectedness. In most cases, most organizations have donors who are unaware of each other. So their ties are to common symbols, leaders, and ideals, but not to one another. And I think that is the secret benefit of creating a sense of belonging, is that it's about connecting people. And while we certainly all have lofty ideals in our fundraising appeals, that we appeal to folks' higher altruistic aspirations, but ultimately it's about the people and who is asking whom. So creating a culture of belonging encourages people to give their time and their money because they want to belong to a team who gives their time and money. It's relatively simple. There's a great book that I recommend called The Art of Community, 7 Principles for Belonging, written by Charles Vogel. And it has a tremendous worksheet, which I recommend everyone to download, which you can do online, to do a self-assessment of your community and how belonging is cultivated. And I just thought I would quickly go through some of the elements in his book. Once again, I love his quote: "Communities are created when at least 2 people begin to feel concern for each other's welfare. If others join this tiny caring flame, the community fire grows. Communities function best and are most durable when they're helping members to be more successful in some way in a connected and dynamic world. Communities should make people, including you, stronger, happier, and full of well-being." So on the worksheet, he asks you to define the community. What do you want from your community? Who should be in the community? What values do you have within the community? What values do people recognize within your community? What does your community identify as? Is that how you want to be represented? What does your community tell each other about what you should believe? And what do members want others to understand about them without having to explain themselves as being part of the community? I understand that the chat is not functioning, but I'd be happy to share this worksheet with you following the program. So now on to alumni relations, volunteer management, and fundraising. I thought I'd share a few quick tips about how I have approached alumni relations and belonging. And following that, we will go into some Q&A. So my philosophy is build it and they will come. I find that while I have great respect for market research, I find that when it comes to alumni relations, very often the people who will fill out your surveys are the people who are already engaged. And therefore, it's much easier to pick up the phone or send an email and schedule a Zoom call to get their feedback, as opposed to working on a survey, distributing it, resending the communications, and so forth. The reality is, I call it that there are 3 tiers of alumni. There are those who are indebted to your organization, indebted to your in school, and they will show up for anything. And then there are those who are inclined, who aren't involved, but if you call them, or if someone calls them, and they feel like they are invited to belong, they're more likely to participate. And then there are those who will most likely not participate, and it's not worth your time. Those indebted folks are probably about 15% of your population. Those who will never participate is probably another 15%. So if you have 70% in the middle to try and engage. And how do you do that? You go where they are or where they want to be. I often say that my goal is to provide contemporary value to our alumni. I don't spend a lot of time on nostalgia, although reunions can be great. And talking about the history of an organization is very important. But where are the people now? Where are they physically? Are the majority of your alumni in a particular life stage? At Baruch College, I say that our alumni population is primarily in their aspirational phase, because of our 160,000 alumni worldwide, I would say probably 70% of them have graduated within the last 20 years and are under 50 years old. And so these folks are still building their careers, still growing as professionals. And so we target the majority of our content towards that population. We also have other programming for more senior alumni and for students and those who have just graduated. These are ways to try and create a sense of belonging across generations. And here you see, in terms of recent grads, they're really eager to network with professionals. Mid-career professionals tend to want to give back in terms of being mentors. Senior executives, we often tap to be keynote speakers. At Baruch College, we have been cultivating alumni networks at our top alumni employers. So last year we did an audit of our top 100 employers, and we have 1,000 at JP Morgan Chase, we have 500 at EY, we have 300 at Goldman Sachs, and so forth. And so we started identifying alumni at each company to be our company liaisons. And we work with them to host annual virtual events for all the alumni at the firm. It is a win-win-win opportunity, because by creating that sense of belonging within the organization, it can further a sense of further retention. It can also cultivate mentorship and sponsorship within the organization. It's also an opportunity to share job opportunities among the alumni and to build talent pipelines between the company and the college to hire our undergraduate students, our graduate students, and even our alumni. We've done experienced hire events as well. And then, of course, it also reminds our alumni of their belongingness to the greater Baruch community as they see their hundreds of fellow alumni working at that firm. And with that dual affinity, we encourage them to give. And so we will be hosting a number of corporate fundraising communication campaigns around Giving Tuesday, which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, so November 30th. And fingers crossed we get a good response. We also have been creating alumni networks based on industry, in those in real estate, insurance, investor relations, media, and marketing. And the exciting, it's very exciting to see our alumni connect and have that lean in, that meeting of the minds, even over Zoom, as we have been hosting our events over the past 2 years. Of course, having a sexy venue is also very appealing. And I really look forward to our being able to host events in gorgeous locations where people feel an extra special to be there together. I am a huge advocate for LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn probably an hour a day connecting with our alumni. And let's see if the link will, I'm not sure if we'll be able to connect to the links that I have here, but we have a primary institution page for the college. Anyone who says they went to Baruch College is counted among the alumni on LinkedIn. Currently, we have 133,000 of our 160,000 alumni on our institutions page. And it's a great place for students and alumni to search for other alumni. We also have a specific alumni network page. That network page is where I encourage alumni to post jobs of any at any level, whether it's entry level or more senior, because they know that if they receive a resume from a Baruch graduate, they already have a sense of connection. They already have a sense of understanding and hopefully some care and concern for one another. Instead of using a third-party alumni network platform, we use LinkedIn and their groups for our various alumni networks. So our alumni in the UK, our alumni in Hong Kong, our alumni in media, our Asian Heritage Alumni Networking group, our Robert C. Weaver Black Alumni Network, all of these groups have groups, as it were, on LinkedIn where they can share information, share articles, and where we promote communications. I spend a lot of time sending connection invitations to our alumni, encouraging them to link in so that I might invite them to an event or invite them to speak at a program or invite them to join one of these groups, inviting them to belong, inviting them to feel that sense of care and concern. And then meanwhile, your LinkedIn group will only show up as frequently, will show up more frequently the more you post. So very often we ask alumni to, a couple alumni who are particularly excited about the network, to become our LinkedIn posting ambassadors so that they will continue to post content on the site so that the LinkedIn group will show up in your feed. That is the biggest challenge, is having enough content on your page so it shows up in one's feed. A few tips regarding volunteer engagement. I'm all about altruism, but people are also motivated by self-interest. And so how are individuals wanting to give back What is their priority? I find that frequently alumni are concerned about volunteering because they think they're going to have to all of a sudden run a committee or all of a sudden run a gala or take on something for a long period of time. And as I said, the majority of our alumni are working or and parents, and so we try to provide bite-sized volunteering roles so that it's either a one and done, for instance, a virtual mentoring week where a student would meet with an alum for an hour. If they connect, terrific. But that's a one-time population. Another detail about volunteer engagement is who's your institution's largest alumni audience? What do they want? Go where the people are and see how you can engage them to create that sense of community. A lot of us talk about how important it is to cultivate belonging while they're still students. We host something called the 100 Days initiative, which is a countdown from graduation back 100 days. In the US, it's about Valentine's Day. So we often have our 100 Days I Love Baruch campaign and hand out candied hearts and so forth that say I love Baruch to create that sense of community. So many students are so busy, focused on their own academics, focused on their lives, their careers, and their families, that the idea of thinking about belonging to the broader alumni network is something that it is hard to spend time and focus on. But I will note that Baruch College was ranked among the top 20 public colleges alumni networks across the United States, according to the Princeton Review this year. And it was because students saw alumni on campus and they noticed that alumni were coming back and spending time volunteering as mentors, speaking in classrooms, that alumni showed up for recruitment events, and that there's a legacy relationship between some of our largest student clubs and their alumni, in which the alumni come back to participate in their programming and attend their award dinners. So if you are able to integrate alumni into your student belonging experience, they will understand that connection even better. I also want to make a note that board members serve as mentors and show up in addition to being generous donors and helping with the governance of the organization. The more that those senior leaders model the belonging business of alumni relations and advancement, the more their impact will be that much greater. And in many cases, board members are not as engaged with the community as they could be. And so I invite you to invite your board members to share how they want to represent belonging. And then on a 3-year basis, perhaps rotate them as mentors, as classroom speakers, working with your student clubs. I will note that I have a staff person specifically dedicated to supporting student alumni initiatives, who proactively goes and meets with student clubs to say, would you like an alum to come speak at a future program? Many of the students continue to hustle on their own, getting their own speakers from their alumni networks, and that's just fine. We try to encourage them to let us know when that happens by having a closet full of T-shirts and mugs and teddy bears and phone chargers and so forth that the students could give as gifts to the alumni who come to campus. And we now actually record all the alumni who come on campus, or we try to. We ask all of our colleagues to send us a list, an Excel document of the alumni who came to recruit, who came to speak on campus, who came to speak in the student clubs, those who volunteered and mentored through our mentoring programs. And we include them in our annual donor report, which is now produced online. And last year we had close to 1,000 alumni volunteers. There are websites out there where you can define how much a volunteer hour is valued at in your location. In New York City, it's something like $28 for an hour. So if an alum spends an hour with your student, that is in fact, time is money. That is in fact a contribution worthy of being acknowledged. And those who spend time will spend money. It is the delta that I am trying to pay attention to is how many of those alumni who we have engaged in our belonging business now step up to become donors. I often joke that once alumni come back to campus and see the students and interact with them and see how impressive they are, that then my colleagues who are the fundraisers are able to just go and pick up their wallets off the floor. It's not that easy, unfortunately, but that is how I see it. That by once creating that sense of belonging, once creating that sense of connection, once you've created that frequency and times for people to connect and feel care for one another and concern for one another, that's when people are ripe to become donors. So some fundraising belonging questions. What do people think about when they think of who your donors are? Who are your new donors being invited to belong with? How can you create a sense of belonging among your existing donors? Certainly, there are donors who just want to give money, and that is just fine. We are very grateful for their support. But it's also about the community, especially in higher ed. One of the biggest questions is who will ask whom to give? That do you have alumni that you have trained to ask for a gift? Because more often an alum will give to an alum, or we would hope. I'm all for professional staff, and it is their job to ask, but it's that much more impactful when an alum is part of the process. Another question, how can you nurture care and concern among your individual donors? And if you take anything away from today's program, I hope you will remember the difference between concern and common interest, and that you use this triad of belonging to drive your alumni relations, your volunteer engagement, and your fundraising strategy by creating regular opportunities for people to connect. And I will note that we shifted entirely to Zoom, and we're able to produce close to 140 Zoom webinars for alumni and students to connect, for alumni to attend programming. We actually used Zoom to find out how how alumni were doing during the pandemic. We did a panel of alumni from the UK. How is your country, your community, your company, and your family responding to the pandemic? We did this in China and Korea and Canada and Mexico and Brazil and the UK. You can use Zoom to create belonging. It doesn't all have to be with a glass of wine and a piece of cheese. How do you create concern? How do you create that interaction where you're listening to your alumni, where your alumni are talking to each other and having that meeting of the minds experience, that sense of positivity resonance, that sense of oneness? And then that next level of caring, that your alumni truly care about each other and that they want to belong to that community and to your community. So that is my presentation for today. I know I went through quite a bit of content and would be happy to go into any greater depth. I invite you to link in with me, would love to continue the conversation at any time. So Alana, have there been any questions?
There have. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. So yeah, let's just jump right into the questions. First one up, and if you do have more questions, folks in the audience, please do submit them now in the Q&A feature. Can you tell when someone is not likely to join or be responsive, disqualifying them so that you don't use your valuable time trying to pull them in, so you can instead spend time on those who are more interested?
To be honest, they won't.
You're muted.
To be honest, they won't answer your phone call. They won't respond to their email. They will self-select. I often tell our students when we are advising them about networking that, that it's always important to send a second email, because very often a first email, you get it, oh yes, that's interesting to me, let me get back to it, and then they get busy and distracted. But if a second email comes in, that people are like, yes, I need to respond to them. So if you send that second email or that second message and they don't respond back, I don't say cross them off entirely, but move on. I'm sure you have more than enough individuals to focus on.
Great. Another question. How do you renew contact with alumni who cut the feeling of belonging several years ago?
So, as I said, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I try to read through the profile and see what that person is focused on. You know, where are they working? What causes are they, or articles are they posting and sharing? You can find out a lot about someone on LinkedIn. And so I try to engage with them in a very sort of friend-making way, that I'd like to be your friend. I'd like to hear about the work that you're doing. I want to help connect you. I'm on your team. I am here to support you. I often say that the alumni office is the only office that doesn't ask for anything from our graduates. We're not fundraising. We're not asking them to find a job or to place a student. The ask we're making is for them to join the party, to join the community. And you know, one of the things about alumni relations is that you often have folks who are excellent event planners in the alumni relations office, because there's so many events. But very often those event planners are introverts, and they want to be behind the scenes and make everything run beautifully. And that's very important. But you need to have a couple people on your team who just want to talk to people, who want to meet people and build those relationships, to be in the relationship building business. Because no matter how many events you do, you're not going to create connections if you're not part of that, part of the glue to make those connections. My favorite thing to do is to meet someone and say, hey, I think you'd really enjoy talking to so-and-so, and making that introduction. And in many cases, they can be very fruitful from a professional or social basis. And so part of the staffing model needs to be not just event planners, but also relationship managers who really like to talk to people.
You mentioned during your presentation, but I'd love to tease it out more. Can you explain how an alumni office works in tandem with the fundraising department and what that looks like?
Yep.
A lot of folks in the audience are maybe doing both jobs, in fact, so that would be helpful.
Understood. And I've been very fortunate to work in offices where there were distinct alumni relations staff and distinct fundraising staff. Um, so in some organizations, alumni relations is an entirely separate operation, and fundraising isn't connected to it at all. Alumni relations sometimes is seen as the party crowd that wants to just host a lot of events, serve a lot of drinks, create, have in the US certainly a lot of sports events. And the reality is that you can be substantially more strategic in terms of engaging the donor prospects, existing donors, and your fundraising team with your alumni operations. Whenever I'm planning an alumni event, let's say it's focused on social enterprise, I reach out to our fundraisers and say, among your prospects, is there anyone who is building a social enterprise or whose business has a social enterprise component that they would be able to talk about? Those cultivation opportunities are precious to our fundraisers because they want to do more than just ask for money. They want to be able to ask them to give back in their time as well. And so that is an important partnership that we ask them to share some of their prospects. And in those cases, the fundraisers do the ask about them participating and manages that their participation in the program. We also, whenever there are events coming up, we circulate our attendee list, our anticipated attendee list with our fundraising colleagues so they can see if there are any donors who are attending or if there's any prospective donors. There can be individuals who have never showed up before, and we have them rated as a potential $25,000 to $100,000 donor. Our fundraisers are then able to identify who they are and be casual at the event and mix with them. I will say that's one thing that during the pandemic, it's been a little bit more difficult to do. Our fundraisers have sent chat messages saying, hey, Lindsay, I'd love to chat with you about X, Y, and Z. Let's plan a chat. It's a little bit easier to do in person, but we do that. We also review the attendee list at the after the event to see if folks who attended would be worthy of individual follow-up by fundraisers. Our fundraisers do have a set portfolio of prospects, but for each of these events that we do, they are more than happy to pick up the phone and see if there may be a warm person on the other side who's felt a sense of belonging and connection and wants to give back. We also plan some of our events, admittedly, around some of our top donors. If we have a few financiers that we are particularly interested in engaging, I will create a view from the top CEO conversation with those financiers so that they have that exposure. Other ways we collaborate is when individuals want to, within Alumni Relations, I oversee the mentoring programs. We have 2 mentoring programs, and we recruit mentors 4 times a year to participate in an academic year-long program or in a week-long virtual mentoring week. And so we work with our fundraisers to invite those prospects to come and mentor. As once again, once they show up and they talk to our students, they have that exposure. I think it's very important to have that integration. Now, if you're a one-person shop and you're doing both, just need to think about your community in that strategic fashion. What prospects would be willing to share their time and expertise with the broader alumni or student body? And what alumni do you think could be elevated to become prospects and to have that extra one-on-one attention? So those are a few tips.
Great. Thank you. So we're going to move on, I think, to the last question. I think what I'll ask is, for institutions that are in urban areas that are really large, or where they have a lot of alumni stretched around the country or around the world, how do you stay connected to those alumni, not only for community, but also for fundraising opportunities?
So the Baruch College Alumni Network is 160,000 graduates, with about 100,000 of them in the tri-state area. When we have representation in all 50 states, and we're in 113 countries. So during the pandemic, a group of alumni in Israel reached out to me with what I thought was a fabulous idea. They said, we think we should create a Europe, Middle East, Africa alumni network, because trying to host an event in Israel where we have 500 alumni, we put in all this work to do a program in person and we get 15 people. Whereas if we were able to do a Zoom with the 2,000 alumni across the region, we will probably get greater participation. And so I thought that was a tremendously clever idea to create connection among alumni who are so far flung, but share common time zones. When I first arrived at Baruch College, our president was very focused on international exchange and international partnerships. And so we created alumni networks in certain sort of largest markets in terms of the UK, Paris, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Mexico City. And we identified alumni to be our point people in those cities. Volunteer management is sometimes like herding cats. And so more often than not, they would be responsive to us rather than initiate programming. But we were in a place where we were hosting annual events in these markets prior to the pandemic. In terms of being an urban institution, there's a lot of competition for your alumni's time, right? So you can see the sun on my face. It's a beautiful day here in New York. Whether they want to go to the theater or to a museum or be involved with an animal organization or with an international organization, there's a lot of competition. So that is where belonging matters so much, that alma mater experience, that sense of connection. And again, go where they are. Are they in career aspirational places? If so, host career events and host industry-based programs. My networks in the tri-state area are much more diverse than my networks internationally. Even in the Bahamas or Jamaica, alumni are just glad to connect with each other because they've had that common New York experience at Baruch. But in New York City, we have our LGBTQ alumni network. We have our Latinx network. We have our Asian Heritage network. We have our industry networks. We also host a lot of career education programming that we charge for, but maybe $25 that in any other environment would cost $150, $250, $500, $600. We know career coaches that charge $1,000 an hour. And so to be able to share their expertise with our alumni at a greater discount, that's another competitive advantage we offer. I've negotiated discounts with a number of different organizations that provide various benefits and services, in particular to local alumni, so that there is an additional incentive to engage and connect.
Really interesting. If it's okay, Janet, I do have, can I sneak in one quick question, one
I am
burning
here
question?
as long as you like.
But I think it's a good one, and we'll end on this one. And as I say, it's a good one because I think this is a common challenge across Europe where the culture is quite different in a university.
Yes.
So Susan asks, how do you change the mindset of alumni who cut off their sense of belonging from an organization immediately after they complete their studies? They completely don't want to associate with the organization anymore. The only reason they would come back is if they have a package from their sponsor. I guess meaning some kind of gift or something like that.
Interesting. So, I would say Baruch College is more similar to that European experience where it's transactional and you go to school and you go to work and you go home and you repeat and you do that for 4 years or for 2 years. And then your Baruch experience is over. And so the work that I am cut out to do and that you're cut out to do is to re-educate these alumni that in fact there is community after graduation. It's one person at a time, it's one phone call at a time. And I've been at Baruch for 7 years, and every day I am connecting with someone who has felt that sense of disconnect. All of these strategies that I've shared, you may think sounds very American and rah rah. But the reality is that we're trying to create that sense of belonging as soon as possible so that we don't have to go and have that "where have you been all these years" type of conversation, because as our alumni are promoted and become the senior professionals, our fundraisers are going to reach out to them. And it's always awkward when you have a conversation with a prospective donor who's an alum who graduated, whether 5, 15, 30 years ago. And I said, well, where have you been all this time? What have you done for me? Why should I come back and give you my money? And so it is, when I showed up at Baruch, we had a very active group of alumni who graduated from the college 40 years ago and who had been engaged in a very belonging-centric sort of way as donors. But we did not have a pipeline of alumni who graduated 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And so strategically, the alumni engagement work that I am doing now, person by person, event by event, is to create that pipeline. So I am all about having conversations, and more often than not, when I speak with an alum, they will say, I'm not in touch with anybody from my college experience. I had a very transactional experience. I was working so hard. I had 2 jobs. I had 3 kids, and I just didn't have time to build relationships. Whether they didn't have time or the inclination or the culture isn't there to create those connections and sense of belonging as part of the student experience, doesn't matter. As part of the cultivation team, as part of the broader team, your job is to say, today, I have opportunities for you to feel that sense of belonging. Today, I have 6,000 alumni who are in the C-suite that are your peers to whom I could connect you. Or I have 30,000 alumni who are accountants and could be part of your team. When I talk about self-interest, people often engage with their alumni office when they're looking for a job, right? When they're looking for, that's always part of the career conversation. How do you network? How do you connect with people? Because 80% of jobs are gotten through networking. And they say, go connect with your alumni office. And so when folks are reaching out to me saying, how can I get involved? Invariably, once you've had 2 or 3 conversations, it's because they are looking to meet people to engage with for career conversations. And you can be straight to the point and say, if you are, if I can help you connect with other people who are professionals with 10 years experience in the media industry, that would be my pleasure. Let me connect you with our LinkedIn group. Let me connect you with an individual. Let me have you come and speak on a panel about your expertise. And, you know, just sort of give them the opportunity to then to give their time. And we hope then we'll give back. So it's all about building relationships. And I hear you and I feel you, I get it. It's hard to have those initial conversations. And that is why belonging my discovery of this concept of belonging has been so invaluable to me, because people want that. Intrinsically, people want to feel that sense of belonging, and they may or may not feel that sense of belonging in their lives with their families and with their employers. But how about feeling that sense of belonging to a place where you spent 4 years or 2 years or 8 years? These people with whom you were during a very critical part of your life of development. How about reconnecting to that part of you and see where it goes?
Well, thank you so much, Janet. Truly, really interesting conversation, really wonderful insights that I hope everybody can make good use out of. So thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you once again to our co-sponsors, Charities Institute Ireland, Fundraising for Urbanus Austria, Scuola di Fundraising di Roma, and Utrecht Network. Thank you so much, folks, for joining. Please do reach out to me at KBF US if you think we could be of any assistance to you. Enjoy the rest of your days. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.